recording will be on now. Also, we are going to have use of the QA function with Zoom webinars. And so if you have a question during the course of the webinar that you'd like us to answer, we will save those for the end if we have time, and we'll try to address those publicly here. So go ahead and enter those questions as we cover any particular pieces of content that you'd like more information on. And so there'll be a couple of different opportunities for us to engage with you on those things towards the end of the call or in follow-up to today's meeting. Really, I think the core focus and the premise for why we're hosting this webinar is, for me, especially as an agency owner, we're working with around 160 or so different clients. One of the biggest realities for most businesses today is that they have to be strategically thinking about how they can cut costs or reduce expenses. And really, for most of our clients, they're looking at doing those in areas where that expense is really being wasted. And they're trying to find a balance between reducing their expenses without cutting so deeply that they're actually starting to impact any sort of growth opportunity now or in the future. And so based on that, we really came up with this concept, and I think have a really fantastic group of panelists and organizations represented. And so hopefully we'll be able to provide a lot of value to you. So I'll let the guys who are co-hosting with me here introduce themselves, and we'll get underway.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. My name is Evan Smith. I'm with BigCommerce, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about technology and reducing spend. I've been with BigCommerce for about 7.5 years. I've been in e-commerce for just under 13 years. Today, I sit on the product marketing team and work on a lot of our go-to-market strategy for BigCommerce. So really excited to talk to you guys today, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, and hi everybody, I'm Adam Gardner. I'm here with Route. I've been in e-commerce and SaaS solutions for nearly a decade. Mostly just excited to be able to connect with you guys and share with you some ways that Route and BigCommerce and Coalition can help everybody do exactly what Jordan just described, right? Is finding ways that we can optimize without sacrificing our opportunity to grow at a time like this. So
awesome. Thank you, Adam. And thank you, Evan. I'm glad you guys could be here with us. And my name is Jordan. I am the president and COO at Coalition Technologies. I think we're one of the first e-commerce focused digital marketing agencies in the United States. I've been at e-commerce for about 18 years. That's how I covered my student debt back in college, was running some drop shipping e-commerce businesses and things like that. So I've really enjoyed leading a team focused on e-commerce marketing and design and development, and more on the management and operations side for the last several years. And so hopefully that's sort of the experience that I'm able to bring to the table here for you guys today. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have the opportunity to reduce expenses and either maintain your revenue or grow your revenue, what you're really looking at is increasing your profitability, right? And profit really is something that is needed for a healthy business. And for many of you, if you're the business owner or if you're a decision maker for a particular aspect of an organization's e-commerce efforts, at the end of the day, profit is sort of what ends up dictating how we're doing. It's sort of the healthy pulse. Warren Buffett has the quote, cash is to a business as oxygen is to an individual. We don't think about it when it's present, but the only thing on our mind when it's absent. And I think that's really true for a lot of businesses today, as they're seeing some kind of squeeze or some kind of challenge that they're facing as a result of current economic climate and COVID and quarantines and lockdowns and things like that. And so hopefully what I can help bring to the table today is really the perspective of an owner and an owner of an organization of scale, but also someone who is working with a lot of other business owners, marketing directors, directors of e-commerce, e-commerce managers, and individuals like that. So Coalition has been around for about 10 years. We started the agency out of our apartment in Venice, California. We were a few blocks off of Venice Beach, so it was noisy, it was chaotic, it was often messy. And we worked a lot of long hours, had rollaway beds, and would pull out our desks in the morning and have team members sort of come into the office. And that was really sort of where we got our start. And so the business is personal to me, and certainly it's something that seeing any sort of challenge or threat to, I take personally. And so I know a lot of organizations today are going through sort of a similar experience. Our professions, our livelihoods are sort of being challenged, and it's something we all take personally. And so we're putting a lot of thought into how we can look at growing and how we can be successful and healthy in this time period. Today we have around 213 full and part-time team members around the world. So we've done well. We've really been able to grow with e-commerce and grow through e-commerce. And so it's been a really good opportunity for us, and hopefully some things that I can pass along to you today. Now, in light of this particular topic and conversation, we had done some surveys with some of our customers, really, and again, most of these are e-commerce businesses, around sort of the different expense categories and areas that they had concerns, and sort of what was driving some of the areas where they felt perhaps there was waste. And really, one of the biggest ones that came up was people. And it wasn't so much that people felt like they necessarily didn't need the people. It was really felt like they didn't have a good handle on this particular expense category. They weren't sure what was appropriate, what was sort of maximum value to them. And they ultimately really weren't sure if they felt like they were getting sort of the best ROI on that particular investment. And so a couple of the feedback items we just had, they were, the human expense was sort of the number one non-merchandise expense for our clients. It was one of the biggest sort of concern areas that we had. So kind of people were saying on average, they're looking at spending about 15% of their budget on sort of human expense. And it was the first area where clients, again, felt they had sort of this unneeded expense. They were feeling like they were putting some money in and they weren't quite sure what was actually coming out of that as a result. And so I wanted to share some of what I think has helped Coalition grow to be an agency that privately funded. We've been able to compete with a lot of private equity backed or financially backed other agencies successfully at scale. And some of the concepts that have really, I think, been the difference maker for us. And I think for a lot of individuals, whether you are the business owner or whether you're a team lead or a director or a manager, are areas where you can start to scale and start to be more efficient in terms of sort of your expense opportunities. And so one of the biggest areas where our customers have expense waste when it comes to their teams really is sort of a lack of information on processes, on job responsibilities, decision-making criteria, and those sorts of things where you have to ultimately be able to get someone to know how to do something. And it becomes very difficult to do because there's certain sort of black holes or gray areas in the business or in your particular team where it requires someone who is senior and more experienced to jump in and do a lot of hand-holding to get someone who's junior and newer to start working on something or just to do something right. And so kind of the specific example and tip that I had there was to just start documenting everything. We have the technology today where it's very easy for you to simply put together a quick process training and document. There's a lot of really great resources for project management, which we often are using for specific tasks, but can also be converted into training modules or training resources. And so at Coalition, we created our first process video about 3 months in when it was really just 2 team members, my brother and I. And that video has been watched about 5,000 times by our team members. It's not one that we're actively using in our training modules and processes anymore, but just over the last 10 years, it's been something that's had sort of widespread availability and impact. And very early, it allowed Coalition to start training and resourcing team members to be more effective without sort of needing to double down on the sort of expense of having senior people involved in kind of passing along sort of this information that's been accrued in their head. And for many of you, that's a challenge, right? You sort of, know things about the organization, about e-commerce, about marketing, and you really are in a challenge where you always are the one who has to convey things. And the sooner you start to document it, the better off you will be. And that really does lead into my second tip, just on the people front, and that's prioritize training. When you prioritize training, really what you are doing is creating an opportunity to scale your team effectively. We have a goal of getting all of our new hires on board and working in some production capacity where they are actually contributing to the team within 1 week. by pushing that agenda and pushing that initiative ahead, we've been able to reduce the cost to the organization of that training period by 50%. And we've really been able to grow our team count year over year without necessarily having to match our actual company growth in terms of clients at the same pace. We've been able to bring in new hires, get them effective and up to a higher level of productivity really quickly. And that's been really encouraging and allowed us to continue to grow and onboard new clients without that having impacting their customer experience at all. And again, a lot of our clients, one of the things when we kind of followed up with them on this, many of them just feel like they don't have enough time to ensure that their teams are effectively trained. And that's when you get into that sort of document everything tip. And that starts to become something, and again, it doesn't have to be a formal sort of resource. A lot of our early training materials were YouTube videos that we just recorded from a webcam, had unlisted or private so that only a few people could access them. And then Google Docs, we were able to sort of do things like that to help really reduce our the sort of training investment we needed. And that was really effective, especially when you're coming from a point where you don't have documentation on your processes and you don't have training. The next sort of people-oriented tip that I would offer is establish some KPIs. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of organizations challenged by as they work from home or they move to remote work is that a lot of individual team members lack really clear daily objectives, big picture objectives and near-term objectives about what they need to be achieving. Most of them are working on sort of a task list or a checklist, but they're not really able to effectively prioritize to achieve the bigger picture goal that the business has. And so we've changed our business model quite a bit over the last 7 years to really put KPIs or key performance indicators for our team members in a per role basis in place where it influences their income, it influences their performance evaluations, and it's really sort of cleaned up our ability to allow people to self-lead and to self-direct their work and do so really effectively. That's improved our team performance and our team output. So we're seeing increases. I think average, we saw about 67% improvement there in terms of what our team member could do. And also having good, clear goals for each individual team member as to what they want to do with their day-to-day. Also has increased our team member retention. And so we've seen over time our retention of our team members double, right? And so that reduces hiring costs, training costs, and other things, because we're able to say like, hey, you'll know when you're doing well based on your KPI. And that KPI becomes sort of this opportunity to motivate them and keep them focused on sort of core areas of what they need to do. Now, perhaps maybe more interesting for some of you, especially more into the actual nuts and bolts of the e-commerce team. One of the big areas of expense for our clients, again, we kind of had around 160 to 200 or so at a given particular point in time. But merchandise is one of those top categories for our clients. They're investing in product because that is sort of the underpinning of their business. If the product is moving, they're in a position where they're typically successful. And that really is sort of a key story for them. And so I have kind of taken upon myself to go out and talk to a couple of our clients who are doing well and sort of get their input on what they're doing perhaps differently than other e-commerce businesses out there to keep active, to stay successful, to turn sort of this sort of downturn that we have with COVID into something that either is giving them uplift or is giving them an opportunity to weather these sort of months of lockdown. And so these are some COVID specific tips. I think a lot of them though are really valuable outside of COVID because I think they sort of speak to some of the things that we sometimes put on the back burner. And the first one was renegotiate terms with manufacturers, distributors, factories, warehouses. There is a lot of our clients have gone on and done these outreach efforts, and I actually have found that their third parties that they're working with, their partners, have been really willing to help support their business in this time. And a majority of those clients who have attempted that have seen success in getting better rates, more favorable pricing, better terms in terms of payment terms, things like that. And so this is a really strong one, especially if you're in a leadership position and you have influence over a specific team or partners. This is a really great place to consider some taking a little bit of time and potentially seeing a big dividend as a result of that. The second tip that they had was source products that are trending due to COVID-19. So that there's obviously some examples of this, like masks and hand sanitizers, but a lot of industries are sort of finding other products that not necessarily about health and personal protection that are doing well. An example is bread makers or bread recipe books have been very popular. Toys and games have done really well for us. Things that are interactive, can be done at a distance, can be done remotely with other people. Those things have really been successful, and most industries have some opportunity there. So whether that's in personal care, creating a sense of personal well-being, there is a theme where products are selling really well in most industries and categories. And so either looking at sourcing your some new product options, sometimes from a third party, maybe a drop shipper even, to sort of complement your normal product catalog, can be a really great way to improve revenue opportunity and be able to drive some good outcomes right now. The third tip was to identify geographically varied suppliers for key products or merchandise. And again, so we have some clients who are selling their own branded products, and due to restrictions in their particular region aren't able to get to warehouses, aren't able to get to stores or showrooms or stock rooms to get things shipped out, or they just feel like there's a challenge in their area about doing that responsibly. And so starting today, especially if you've got downtime because you're not able to do sort of the normal responsibility of your role, a lot of our clients that have attempted this have been successful. They've gone out and they've looked for a supplier of a product that complements their existing product line, or even as a replacement for their existing product line, and is in a geographic region which is already recovering from COVID-19, or is not in a position where the spread has created sort of more significant lockdowns. And that's actually been a really, really strong thing for them because it allows them to stay open, allows them to keep inventory moving and sales moving. It allows them to keep in communication with customers around sort of a profitable opportunity for them. A few other sort of,
Jordan.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, this is Adam at Route jumping in. I think it's interesting because even though, you've got that labeled as COVID-19 tips, you mentioned it, but these are things that could apply in a variety of situations, right? There could be, some political unrest or a war or something in a geography that you depend on. So having that diversification, I think that there's always something that we can do. There's always some of those opportunities that are going to help insulate us and help optimize us. Yep. Really, at any point in time, as specific as our conditions are right now, those are principles that I think apply in a variety of conditions.
Sure. Yeah, it's huge. And I mean, they are things that carry through, right? So, sometimes it's a dispute perhaps with your 3PL provider. Maybe it's a particular challenge with a particular type of merchandise. Maybe there's a shipment that's been delayed under normal circumstances. Sort of having these fallbacks is great. And it also sometimes it helps you understand better where your opportunities are inside of your particular category. Testing new products, looking at sort of developing new product themes or ways of selling your product can be really effective. We have a relationship with a Fortune 100 company, and they have a couple of smaller e-commerce stores where they test basically new product messaging and new product concepts as sort of an independent brand. And it's not really there to sort of create, profitable opportunity for them. It's just simply a test line of products where they think, hey, we think this will work. And so it serves almost more like a product development e-commerce function. And so that's been really successful for them. It's helped them improve messaging on their core product line and also find new opportunities. So yeah, absolutely, Adam. A couple of other merchandising tips, and I think, again, these are things that have that long-term opportunity. If you've got the time, really look at sort of cross-sell and upsell opportunities. Sometimes I think looking at this even from like a collaboration standpoint can be really effective. Looking at a related business to yours that maybe is selling online successfully, doing a quick outreach to them and saying like, hey, we're, interested in doing a collaboration. Here's the complement of our product to yours. That can be extremely, extremely successful. It also helps build your average order value. And again, it potentially helps you sell something when you're finding particular challenges in your core product, and can create a more diverse product line that is more stable and able to be sold year round or something along those lines. 76% of our clients also said that they had sort of a meaningful in-depth review of their sourcing practices, had improved profitability. 64% of them said that just asking for discounts under normal circumstances or incentives with existing suppliers and partners and providers resulted in savings. And so it doesn't even have to be sort of tied to a COVID sort of experience, but you can still see savings opportunities attached to those. And probably the one that I'm most invested in, because this is one of our key focus areas as an agency, is marketing. And frankly, even in the best of times, we see a lot of well-run e-commerce brands come in that are seeing a fair bit of wasted marketing spend. And to me, that's especially egregious, partially because marketing is one of those areas when you're investing well, it has sort of a bigger upside. When you're not investing well, you're not only losing those dollars as an expense, but you're also missing out on opportunity. And so there's an opportunity cost that's again, sort of offensive to me as a marketing agency, and kind of with our core focus being around SEO, SEM, paid social, email marketing, things like that. So I wanted to kind of cover a few of the things that I think most common seem to be the recurring issue that lead to kind of fall down in marketing outcomes and marketing success. First one is data accuracy. Of our new clients that come on board, 100% of them express some concern with the data accuracy that they have. They just feel that the information that they're leaning on to make marketing decisions is in some way inaccurate. 41% of new clients, they were operating unprofitable pay-per-click campaigns based on inaccurate data. So they're looking at some different data sets, and we're kind of making decisions based off of those kind of reports that they were getting from a prior agency or even internally. And we're finding that a lot of them were investing in pay-per-click campaigns that weren't driving profitable outcomes. 13% was an average savings after data accuracy was improved. And so businesses were able to make better decisions and able to make better investments with their marketing dollars when data was improved. And that resulted in an opportunity to reduce cost, like we've talked about, and then increase growth opportunity. The biggest fall down area is really not understanding attribution. And so over on the right-hand side here, we have sort of the common attribution models. And so one of the challenges that we get is that a lot of our brands don't realize that they're working off of reporting that gives mixed attribution. And so, one particular report might be showing something that's based on a time decay or linear attribution model, or another might be looking at sort of a last click attribution model. And so what ends up happening as a result is that you end up having some sources or channels of marketing that are providing and claiming that they're responsible for, X dollars, and then others are reporting that they're responsible for Y dollars. When you add the two together, you find that they just don't match what's actually transacting through your e-commerce storefronts or your marketplaces. And so something has to be wrong, and it can't just simply be narrowed down to returns or canceled orders or things like that. And so really making sure that as you create reporting or get reporting from an agency, that you understand what the different attribution models are and why that attribution model was chosen is really, really critical in helping to understand what's driving what success for your business at what layer of your funnel. And so one of the things that Coalition does, because we are a full service agency, which I think is really helpful, is that instead of having a social agency that's reporting sort of Facebook's attribution, which tends to sort of over attribute everything to Facebook, it's sort of the assumption in a lot of Facebook reporting I've seen is that if a user is on Facebook, somehow Facebook is going to be responsible for all of that revenue that comes to your site from any Facebook user. So we actually standardize our attribution models for our client reporting. And so that allows for at least a oneness in terms of the data that you're seeing. You're able to see some consistency. And then we do some additional testing and reporting around what's sort of driving mid-funnel, top-of-funnel growth, and sort of help to establish the value there by still looking back at sort of that final attribution that we have. The next tip that I have is really watch pay-per-click closely. Again, it's one of those areas where a lot of brands tend to continue to spend, and really there are some holes in the bottom of the boat that sort of are allowing water to flood in and aren't really keeping profits coming in. And so pay-per-click is this sort of double risk area because you're spending more aggressively to go out typically, and you really expect that there's a closed loop between your spend and your outcomes with revenue or new sales. And so I wanted to highlight a few different areas of typical pay-per-click spend, especially within Google Ads and Google Shopping. So first one really is not managing your negative keywords well. One of the challenges that we see is that a lot of brands are spending on variations of terms that will never convert for them. And frankly, they may not even want their ad to show up for. But because they have not really put time into managing their negative keyword list well, they're in a situation where they continue to spend on those terms day in and day out, and sometimes at very, very egregious volumes in terms of dollars of expenditure. This is a fairly easy one to check and also to set up. You can add negative keywords fairly easily inside of Google Ads interface. I've done a screenshot here just to highlight that for you. You can also, if you're working with an agency, pop in and check in on some of the negative keywords that they've chosen for some of your different ad campaigns. If you see a really short list there, that may be a red flag for you. It may be a concern where you kind of think like, they're missing out. We're probably spending on some terms that we don't need to. You can also use Google Analytics if you have a linked account between Google Analytics and Google Ads to view what terms are driving traffic from your ads campaigns. And then you can look at that data and cross-compare it and say like, hey, this doesn't really make sense. I don't want to do, I'm not selling DIY tutorials, so I don't really want to tell people how to make the product that we're offering on our website. And so DIY maybe is one of those areas, or tutorial maybe is one of those areas where I want to have a negative keyword, and I'm not. I'm spending for that traffic to come to our website. Overspend on branded terms is also a huge one. So branded terms are basically a keyword that your company owns. And so that can be through trademark or copyright, or just the fact that there isn't anybody else really using it. They can be sort of an invented term for your product. Sometimes you'll have some legal protections on them, sometimes you won't. But branded terms are a big area where pay-per-click agencies, when they're operating independently and they don't have sort of this interconnection to other marketing responsibilities, where they will abuse your spend just in a huge way. Branded keywords can have valuable roles inside of pay-per-click campaigns, but often at much lower spend than what you currently are doing. And so branded keywords, basically what's happening is you're bidding on your own brand name or your own product name. And as a result, you're basically paying to run either an ad or a couple of ads above organic listings for your products or your services. And so you could potentially get that traffic for free. You potentially could get that traffic to a high converting landing page for free, but instead you've chosen to bid on that particular term. Sometimes if you're running a marketplace advertising campaign as well, with an Amazon or Walmart or something along those lines, you may even be bidding against yourself on your own branded campaign, since Amazon and other advertising platforms will often bid up for that traffic. And so you could actually find that you're paying more to drive the traffic to your site, and you're bidding against your Amazon product listings instead. And so being thoughtful about how you're managing your branded campaigns is really important. Make sure that if you are running them, that you are testing the value of them. Am I getting people to a better landing page that converts better than my organic landing pages? Am I bidding against myself? When is it appropriate for me to be bidding on my branded keywords? And then finally, not really narrowing your audiences. And so this is a big opportunity, especially with paid social, and a big area where brands that have previously seen a lot of success within sort of Facebook are perhaps seeing sort of bigger losses today, is really tied to the fact that they're not refining the audience who they're targeting, and not really looking at creating advertising efforts that focus in on the right audience with the right ad. Sometimes Facebook is just extremely fantastic in terms of developing a new customer and communicating with them, but it's also sometimes really fantastic as a resource to get access to an existing customer who's purchased with you in the past. And a lot of waste that happens inside of Facebook, especially in Instagram, is happening because there's not a refinement, an ongoing refinement of the audiences that you're targeting. From an SEO perspective, this is sort of another big miss, whether you're working with an agency or whether you're working on SEO in-house. Prioritize your SEO threshold terms. And so threshold terms are basically a particular keyword where you're in close proximity to moving up towards a place where you're more likely to get a big increase in the volume of clicks. And so inside of the first 2 pages of search results, page 1, page 2, the closer you get to the top, you don't have to be number 1, but typically once you get into that top 3 or top 4 on those pages, you're going to see a pretty dramatic incline in terms of the number of clicks that you'll get. And so if you focus on terms that either are ranking at number 6 or number 7 on a page, and if you potentially just push them up to a number 4, you can see doubling or tripling or quadrupling of sales from that particular term. Same thing even with page 2. When you're on page 2, if you're number 15 in total ranking, moving up to number 12 or 13 may be pretty easy to do in terms of SEO work compared to trying to get to number 1, but potentially yields a bigger payoff in the very near term. And so this is a big area of focus for us, is trying to identify those threshold terms with our customers and which ones are valuable to them, which ones have the appropriate traffic right now, and then using those things to drive good outcomes in the near term. And so this is a client of ours, and so we've been able to move them up for some very strong head terms to positions 5 and 6. And so we're prioritizing these terms right now because we can potentially get 2 pages into the top 5 for them on a really competitive generic. And so that gives us an opportunity to really quickly ramp up their income as a result. And then finally, my last, there was a screen that was missed behind one. So this is the threshold term. So you can see what that looks like here. You can see that the 2 were in position 6 and position 7. If we move to position 5, we clear these frequently asked questions, and we get into a spot where we're likely to capitalize on a lot more clicks. And so this is a pretty easy one to research. SEMrush and other tools can provide you sort of a ranking. And if you see something in that 13, 14, 15 spot on page 2, or 6, 7, 8 on page 1, those are good areas to focus in your efforts a bit more. My final tip on the marketing front is messaging-based marketing. Right now, more than ever, make sure you're extremely active here. And so message-based marketing is email, text, there's chat, there's other sorts of interactions that are now available through social networking, where you can really be doing a lot in terms of just creating messages and content and getting that in front of your existing customers who you have emails or you have mobile phone numbers for. Almost all of our clients, when we start talking to them, are not doing enough or regularly or have a regular campaign for email and text. They're sort of dependent on sort of a shorter sort of, as we come up with something, we'll do it. And frankly, it's really disappointing because the return on investment here is usually one of the highest. You've already got this person interested in your brand and in your product. And so have them, hear from you. It's sort of a really, really strong thing that you can do today to help drive some sales. Part of that is also making sure you're really testing how much you can do. A lot of our customers, what we're finding is that they're not doing enough. Their end consumer is willing to hear from them more, is willing to interact with their message content more, is willing to spend more through messaging than what they're currently doing, simply because they're not hearing from you. And the more that you can mix up or do it differently, what you're communicating to them, the more messaging you can put out in front of them. And so consider how you can mix up the content that you're sending. Send some sales, send some new product launches, send some closeouts, send them just some interesting informational things, show some funny content or interesting content or cute content that some of your users have created through social. You can take all of these different things and just keep mixing up that content, and your customers, especially now, they have a lot more free time to be staring at sort of an internet device, whether that's a desktop or a mobile phone, are going to be willing to invest and engage with your particular content. And so again, think outside the box, look at sort of content that is different than what you normally do, mix that in with the sales and promotional oriented content, and you'll typically find that you can double or triple the number of emails, the number of text messages you can send to customers, and still get high engagement and get high conversion value out of. And so really that's kind of my tip. And then I wanted to also note that one of the biggest areas that people felt that they were overspending was in their technology stack. They were overspending on apps and different solutions along those lines. And so we brought Evan Smith in from BigCommerce, who knows all about this and helping businesses understand what their total cost is for their technology stack.
Well, thanks, Jordan. That was super helpful, and those are some great tips. So, as Jordan said, I wanted to talk a little bit about your actual technology stack and how you can reduce some spend there. As Jordan said, we see all the time customers coming to us that are just spending astronomical amounts on their total tech stack. Specifically today, I really wanted to talk more as your tech stack as it relates to e-commerce, and I think one of the primary things people need to understand, and a lot of people on this call today might know this already, but I think it's important to point out, is there's more than two buckets, but I think the two main buckets when you're looking at e-commerce platforms and technology is SaaS versus on-premise, right? So the concept of software as a service versus an on-premise technology solution. And so one of the main differences are, with on-premise, you have a licensed software, kind of a traditional model where you're installing it locally and you're hosting it yourself, or you have a third-party host. And that also comes with a lot of costs, right? So when you have that model, it's up to you to maintain the software, have to pay somebody to maintain it. For platform upgrades and feature upgrades, you have to pay somebody to do it. Again, you're having a third party for hosting. You have to take care of security. So a lot of times you have to pay somebody to do security audits, security updates. So there's a lot of costs associated, and I think a lot of times people those costs aren't necessarily so apparent. Sometimes they're kind of sitting in the background, and those costs blow up and scale over time, especially as you scale your business. And so I think it's important to point out that SaaS as a software concept for e-commerce has evolved a lot over the last 5 to 10 years, since it was first kind of released. And here's, some of the things that SaaS will deliver for you in terms of cost savings, or it's faster to deploy, right? So whether you're launching or doing an update to your platform or migrating to a SaaS platform, a lot of times you can get that site up in half the time, right? So if you're doing it in half the time, that usually means less cost to get it up and running, but also you're quicker to sales, right? You're generating sales faster than you otherwise would. Some statistics from Forrester and Gartner and some of the third-party companies out there, that SaaS is 75% less costly than on-premise tech solutions. And so when you look at total cost of ownership of your tech stack, that's a pretty significant amount. And again, it might not be apparent up front in necessarily licensing costs and things like that, but all those things I mentioned kind of wrap into what we consider total cost of ownership. So it can be significant cost savings. And some of the other points to point out are continuous product enhancement. So with SaaS, it has a delivery model where, if that platform comes out with a new feature, a new payment feature, a new search feature, things like that, it gets rolled out to all their customers automatically at once, and they get access to it and they can opt into it or not, versus when you're on an on-premise platform, a lot of times you have to have a developer enable that new feature or update that new feature in the platform. And then with hosting, uptime is important. We hear nightmares all the time. People on-premise technology, their site goes down over the holidays. They have to call the third-party host and figure it out. And since there's so many hosting providers associated with on-premise, it's very unreliable. Versus SaaS, they have infrastructure globally, oftentimes, that are deploying to all of their clients, and they're responsible for keeping all of their clients up. And just having a dependable e-commerce platform that scales as your business does. I pointed this out, as you scale your business, those costs associated with on-premise technology only bloat over time. As your business becomes more complex, you get more customers, more sales, you're only going to need more tools, more maintenance, more upgrades. So, when you're looking at the core component of technology, this is really the foundation of where you can start reducing and saving time and money. One of the things I wanted to point out was, I think there's oftentimes confusion in the market. You hear this word cloud versus SaaS, and a lot of times people think they're synonymous, and they aren't. So, one of the main differences, you see a lot of providers now that are on-premise that are launching their solutions in a cloud technology. And what that really means is their servers are actually just hosted in a third-party cloud environment. And in that way, it is similar to SaaS. It's a hosted cloud environment, but what it's not is it's not a full SaaS platform where they're able to deploy updates, software additions, handle security, software upgrades, and manage downtime with software versions. And so when it relates to all those things, those are the things that are really going to save you time and money. So cloud, I wanted to point out that cloud and SaaS aren't necessarily the same thing. So when you're looking at, an e-commerce platform for where you want to migrate or where you are today, it's important to note that when you're doing evaluations. So kind of continuing on the SaaS point, I wanted to point out specific examples where you can actually save time and money. So if you look at the chart on the right, it's a kind of good representation of all of the components of your site when you're talking about e-commerce. And I think most merchants, if you were to pull them, and we have, where they're really wanting to spend most of their time is that number one up there is front-end revenue generating activity. So investing in things like SEO and SEM and building new tools on the front end, user experience, all those type of things are things that kind of directly correlate to improving your customer experience and ultimately generating more revenue, right? But the reality is, no matter what platform you're on, you're going to have costs associated to 2 through 5. The difference is when you're on SaaS, a lot of those through 2 through 5 are significantly less. And so when you look at some of the points I listed out here, I called it out, that could be 75% less costly, but on-premise has a 4 to 6 times annual cost of ownership versus SaaS. And so these are all stats that have been released by Forrester and others, so they're pretty validated in the market. And also SaaS customers sell approximately 2 times more than their industry peers. I mentioned the time to launch. Oftentimes customers, depending on complexity, can get launched under 60 days. So you're to market faster. You're saving hours per week on patching, updating, meeting IT issues. I think that with on-premise, most of the time, about once a quarter, you're having to do a security patch update, which ties up development resources as time and money and cost. I think, in the spirit of reducing costs and maintaining growth, I think if you're on a SaaS platform and that's taken care of for you, you can reallocate those funds to things like the agencies can do, like SEO or other things that can drive growth and revenue. And then lastly, save time troubleshooting third-party app issues. And so I'm actually going to talk more about apps in the coming slides as it relates to total cost of ownership. Save on these costs today. So I wanted to list out, I kind of gave a broad view of, the difference between SaaS and on-premise, but I think if you're looking at ways you can save today as it relates to technology, this isn't everything, but these are some of the main ones you'll see. And so, everything here listed is kind of included in a platform like BigCommerce. Some of these things like Akamai Image Manager and Facet Search and Shipper HQ and others aren't included on every SaaS platform. Some platforms have different benefits that are included, but the moral of the story is they usually have some of these foundational things in SaaS, which is hosting infrastructure, PCI compliance, other things like that. But if you look, these costs can really range, especially as you scale. So, hosting is, you see there's a wide range there. It really depends on the volume of traffic you're getting, the third-party hosts you're getting, what solutions you have. And that goes for several of the things here. But when you kind of net it out, we've done a lot of studies, is that all of these costs that we at BigCommerce have traditionally taken for granted, because all of these things are just included out of the box, basically on almost all of our plans for the most part on these. We don't really charge for those. Those are wrapped into our cost of business, but these are things that you would have to pay for on some on-premise technology. And so that can range from $100,000, $125,000 a year all the way blow up to $500,000 a year. When you look at that number, that's pretty daunting. And to Jordan's point at the beginning, I think a lot of customers are trying to figure out like where and how they can reduce costs. Well, these are some specific things that, at the snap of a finger with a SaaS platform, you're kind of getting rid of a lot of this cost.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is frustrating from an agency perspective is that these are often unneeded. There are competitive opportunities like BigCommerce where you can reduce these costs significantly. And even within the SaaS space, there's sort of discrepancies and differences between app costs and things like that, which can start to layer in. And frankly, from an agency perspective, when we're sort of trying to look at creating a lean ship that is the most effective sales and marketing tool that we can in an e-commerce site, there are areas where these big overruns really do start to impact who wins in particular verticals and who loses. So yeah, absolutely. These costs are something to be really attentive to.
Thanks, Jordan. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about one of our customers, Skullcandy. The reason being is we've done, you can find their case study on our site, but they've been very good in partnering with us, I would say, in terms of helping us understand what a SaaS technology like BigCommerce meant for their business as it relates to a few things. And so we've done some deep dives with them and truly tried to understand where they're saving money. I think it's important to point out, to this point, I've been talking about on-premise versus SaaS, but there is total cost of ownership and cost reducing in kind of the SaaS versus SaaS argument. So, with BigCommerce versus Shopify or BigCommerce versus Salesforce Commerce Cloud, there are cost savings there. And so Skullcandy specifically was on Salesforce Commerce Cloud. And they pointed out these three main things. I'm going to talk about each of them. Just low TCO, powerful performance, and built for growth. So when we jump into low TCO, total cost of ownership is an interesting term. I think, like I said earlier, there's a lot of hidden costs sometimes. And sometimes business owners don't associate certain activities and cost line items with their technology, but really they should, right? So sometimes things like, okay, some, site maintenance, right? They might throw that into the line item of, oh, that's kind of web development work. Well, it is associated with your e-commerce platform, and some platforms you don't have to do as much of that. So that is in the total cost of ownership of the technology. And specifically to Skullcandy, again, they were under unlock a lot of profit, invest a lot more in acquisition of customers, and they did that specifically with BigCommerce in a couple different ways. We have a predictable flat rate pricing model. They were with Salesforce Commerce Cloud, which basically takes a percentage of your GMV. So if you start selling more tomorrow or next week or next month, the take rate is automatically taking, as you grow, it's taking that percentage of your growth. Where ours is a little more forgiving in terms of having more of a flat rate model. It is built for growth, but it's a lot more predictable. So you know exactly what pricing you're getting when and when that could potentially change. And then things like assigned to implementation project manager. So certain platforms like BigCommerce, we assign certain resources kind of just out of the box with certain plans that are dedicated to help getting your site launched and then helping you manage your site going forward. Those can be really expensive costs and couldn't be wrapped into the total cost of ownership, kind of in that I need somebody to help manage my site, do something here. So they saved, they were spending, I probably won't say the number, they wouldn't like that, but an astronomical amount in those type of resources. And when they found out that it's just included for basically free, it unlocked a ton of money for them. And then pre-negotiated payment shipping rates. The benefit of some SaaS platforms like BigCommerce is that we have pre-negotiated solutions built into our platform, like PayPal Braintree, different shipping solutions that basically, for a lot of customers out of the box that we've pre-negotiated for them, is saving them a lot of money. And these costs were really bloated for them on their previous solution. And just by literally switching over, not doing anything, not having to talk to the providers, just by moving to a platform that hasn't built in like this, they save merchants 1% of their GMV on average. So literally just a cost savings overnight. So when you add all these up, it was a tremendous cost savings, and they were able to reinvest that in top of funnel acquisition. Powerful performance. I think it'd be important to call it performance. I think people take this for granted sometimes, but every decimal point of downtime is time that you can't get back in terms of your site selling, especially certain times of the year, over the holidays, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. If your site's going down, I mean, it's essentially tens of thousands of dollars potentially per minute, depending how big your business is. So having industry-leading uptime is super important, but also backed by SLAs. BigCommerce does offer a service layer agreement, which is essentially we promise you a certain amount of uptime. If we don't meet that, we're paying you back for some of that time that were missed within your contract. And then unlimited bandwidth. BigCommerce is on Google Cloud. It's one of the fastest, more flexible, secure hosting providers in the world. And just having that knowledge that, when you're on-premise technology, you could be using any number of third-party hosts, right? You could be on Google Cloud, but you could also be on Joe's hosting shop down the street. So just having that authority and trust in a global provider. And the security, I think this is something in a total cost of ownership that's taken for granted significantly. But it's super important to make sure that you have all the proper certifications, and we do all that for you, so you're not having to pay to go get those. Next slide. I'm going to move pretty quick because I know we're running short on time. So built for growth. I think the important part here is having a platform that, when you're looking at all the saving on list costs, but also puts a bunch of things in the platform that allows you to scale. So you're not, okay, I saved all these costs, I reduced costs, and I'm starting to scale, maximize growth, but now I have to add a bunch more technology or migrate platforms. So I think for Skull County specifically, they were able to go to BigCommerce. They did a lot of vetting of all the third-party applications we had, the API endpoints we had, the calls per second, all of these kind of core components, not for immediately, but for the future. They knew that they were going to need more and more, and they wanted to make sure that the platform was built for their growth. Next slide. So last thing I'll talk about real quickly is just app costs. So going out of the kind of technology platform costs, I think with any platform, you're going to have third-party apps installed. I think, no e-commerce platform is going to have every single need out of the box for every industry and customer. But I think it's important to point out, and I don't want to pick on Shopify. I think Shopify is a good platform as well. But it was just a good kind of point, proof point to make here is that oftentimes customers on Shopify are spending $6,000 to $20,000 more per year just on adding third-party apps when BigCommerce has all of that functionality built out of the box. So just pointing out third-party apps as a reduction in spend is really important. So I listed out a bunch here that have costs associated with them. We'll share this out with you. If you have any of these apps on Shopify or any of these built into your custom platform or anything like that, these are all costs that you would save and reduce spend with a platform like BigCommerce and potentially some others. It could be up to $20,000 annually. It's a pretty significant amount. Also, a lot of apps reduces site speed and site latency, more points of failure, things like that. So apps are a big component into reducing spend. And I'll go through these real quick. Last two things. There we go. Again, not to pick on Shopify, but this customer is on Shopify Plus. These are some hidden things, right? So they were on Shopify, they were on BigCommerce and then they moved to Shopify Plus. And then a few months later, they came back after spending $40,000 transferring over. And it was, they were enamored by kind of the popularity of Shopify Plus. They took for granted some of the things at the bottom here. Order editing, customer edits, backend usability, customer reorderability, integrated upsell, and cart pop-up. These are all things that were native to BigCommerce. They didn't necessarily vet well enough for BigCommerce. What ended up happening, it cost them 2 times as much to run their store just based on those things. Due to the nature of their business being in vape, they had a lot of reorders. They had a lot of customers that wanted to edit orders. Those were all customer service calls on the Shopify platform versus easy admin things on BigCommerce. And that bloated their customer service. When they moved back to BigCommerce, they saved 75% on their savings on BigCommerce. So it's a good point that there's a lot of things in the background, depending on your business, that can bloat cost. So be wary of those as you're looking at your platform, make sure it serves you. And lastly, another good example of performance. This one's more related to performance, API performance and speed. They had hundreds of thousands of products. They had an ERP. They were syncing to BigCommerce. With BigCommerce's APIs, they were able to sync that in a matter of minutes when they made product updates versus it took 4 to 5 hours on BigCommerce or Shopify just to update their products due to the API performance speed. So again, thinking about those things in terms of cost, time value. Sorry, I moved through those quick. I know we're running short on time, and I apologize to Adam. Last thing, real quickly, these are the key takeaways of everything I said. If you take these away, when you're looking at reducing spend and maximizing profitability, make sure you're looking at the SaaS versus on-premise argument, making sure it's the right platform for you. I'm not arguing SaaS is right for every customer in the world. Progressively, it's becoming more valuable for more. And it's a really good way to reduce hundreds of thousands of dollars. Performance, make sure that your platform has an SLA and it's guaranteeing you those times that they say. Any downtime is lost revenue. And so that's super important in terms of protecting yourself. And third-party apps, make sure that the platform you're choosing or technology you're choosing has a lot of functionality built in, and you're minimizing how many apps you need to add just to get to where you need to be. Those can bloat cost over time. So some key takeaways. And so I'll pass it off to Adam to talk about customer experience. And I apologize to Adam for taking too much time. But hopefully some people can stay a little bit longer.
Yeah, hey, and like Jordan said, this is being recorded. So for those of you that do have to jump here in the next 5 minutes, you can absolutely catch up on the recording and see the slides here. But yeah, as we've talked about, there's certainly a lot of costs that go into what you focus on as the business, what only you see. Really where we want to shift gears here is what does the customer see and where does that become a cost center in making sure that you're optimizing. So I'm here with Route. I'll share more about what Route does, but at least for context, we're focused on the post-purchase experience. and giving you and your customers a tool set to keep them informed about where their order is at any good time, but also giving them automated tools to be able to resolve any issues that arise during the shipping experience if it's lost, damaged, or stolen, so that those aren't claims or calls or queries that come into your team to have to support in the first place, and then obviously mitigate on the back end. So really what I'll be sharing is, number one, what is that post-purchase experience and what are the expectations that your customers have for it? Really just to give you some context for how big of a cost center this can be if we're being passive about it. I'll share with you 3 major costs that come up in that process and then 3 solutions to avoid it. So first off, doing a poor job in the post-purchase experience really is unfairly blamed on you. So 84% of consumers will not return to an online store after a bad delivery experience. And that's just defined as a bad delivery experience, right? That's not even a specific outcome, right? It doesn't have to be stolen, lost, or damaged. Maybe it just took too long. Maybe they didn't like that they weren't kept in touch the whole way. But whatever it is, if the customer feels that it's a bad delivery experience, it's enough that they won't come back to your store. Furthermore, 94% of customers just generally blame the retailer, you, if delivery goes badly. So for brands, that doesn't really seem fair, right? I've partnered with the very best shipping companies I can to provide great rates. It's really on them to get it to you. But in the consumer's eyes, unfortunately, it's on you to make it right. And that you're the one who's going to take the brunt of any disloyalty, of them leaving, of them not coming back to you, or even worse, of them sharing negative reviews or anything like that publicly with others. And so it's absolutely in your best interest to make sure that you can provide a white glove experience to them. And it's not all bad news. As you can see here, there's actually some really positive rewards for doing this well. 73% of consumers reported that delivery is most important to the overall shopping experience, right? Think about that. We've just spent almost an hour talking about the importance of driving people to your store, of having a good platform to get them there. But in the consumer's eyes, that is not as important as just the process of getting the thing that they paid for. And 87% of consumers will reward you with greater loyalty to your brand if you will take care of them in the events where things do go wrong, if it's lost, if it's damaged or stolen. So these are the stakes that we're talking about here. What happens if I just leave it to chance versus if I take control? So let's dive into this post-purchase experience. The time from a customer reaches that order confirmation page until they actually handle the thing that they bought from you. So the first major cost actually is not always one that you'd expect. It's your returns policy, because 80% of customers will actually check out your returns policy before they even buy something with you. So we usually think of the returns policy as something that only matters after something has been delivered. But this information here tells us that it's actually a huge driver in your conversion rate in the first place, right? So not only is it a cost in making sure that they convert and they're confident enough and they trust you enough to check out with you in the first place, but then it can absolutely come back to reward or cost you when they actually go through that returns experience, because 73% of shoppers are more likely to buy from you again if they're happy with that returns policy. So really think about your returns policy and how it's affecting your shoppers. The next one is WISMO, which, if you're not familiar, stands for Where is My Order? And it's all of those customers who are calling and asking information on where it is. This could happen in any stage of the post-purchase. It could be that they received an order confirmation email from you, but they're impatiently waiting for the shipping and the tracking number that comes afterwards. So they reach out to you and they're asking, where's my order? It could be at any stage in the process, where's my order? However it comes in, it can be as large as 80% of your support inquiries through chat, email, phone calls, whatever resources you have available. And 93% of customers reported that they want to stay informed and receive proactive updates. So if you're not providing them with proactive updates, they're absolutely going to be coming to you, knocking on your door, nagging your team, driving up all of this cost in non-revenue generating activities, asking your team just to tell them very basic information about where's my stuff. The third cost that we can look at here in the next slide is what happens with failed deliveries. Now, we just talked about how it's not your fault, right? You partner with shipping companies, but over 2.5 billion packages were lost in 2018. And that's just the ones that the shipping companies admit did not make it, were just lost, right? Never made it. 3% of packages seems like a pretty good rate if we're only losing 3% of them. But when we add that up to make it more than 2.5 billion packages, that's a big deal. And as we talked about earlier, if we're just leaving that to chance and our customers are the ones that are falling victim to that 3%, they're taking it out on you. Not only do we have those lost packages, but more and more we're hearing about porch pirates and stolen packages. And just this year, between February and March, as everybody moved into lockdown and quarantines and the current situation that we're in, we've seen a 130% increase in the stolen package claims that have been going on. So it's a growing problem. When you combine that all together, that's billions of packages that are just disappearing and that the customers are leaving you responsible to fix. And when you add up those costs, not only do we have the cost of the first item that got stolen, the shipping that didn't actually get it to them, but you've got the support calls that we just talked about, whether we were telling them, where's my order? But now we've got the support of actually investigating into their claim. Is it actually stolen? Are they trying to defraud me? Your team's chasing that down. And then when you decide to resolve that claim, you've got to pay for a new piece of inventory, new shipping to get it out there. And if you don't do any of that well, we're also talking about losing the lifetime value of that customer if they don't come back to me. So there is a lot at stake in those failed deliveries, even though there's nothing you can do to prevent that from happening in the first place. And what you can do are a few solutions here to avoid those costs. First off, on the next slide here, is to provide next generation tracking. Now, what Route has done is we have created a mobile app that allows users to integrate directly with their email inbox so that anytime they receive an order confirmation and a tracking number, their order automatically populates on a map so they can anticipate their order arriving very similar to the way they anticipate an Uber coming to pick them up. So that at any point in time, they can open up the app and they can see not only an order that they placed with your store, but they could see orders from Amazon, Target, Best Buy, wherever it is that they've shopped with, even a tiny boutique 2 states over that only they've heard of. All of that information is right there in the same map. So they're given the information they need to know exactly where their order is at any point in time. We see 7 engagements in the app per shipment, which means customers are absolutely wanting this information and they're going to the app to get it. And when they're satisfied with that information, they don't need to come to your team sending calls, texts, emails asking, hey, where's my stuff? Because they've got an easy way to see it. Not only are they able to voluntarily open the app and see that, but we're able to notify them with push notifications, because as soon as we pick up that tracking number that was sent to them over email, we can notify them as soon as that package reaches a new scan point. And they get that information via push notification. So they don't even need to dig through a crowded inbox to find updates. They don't even need to remember to open the Route app. We'll give them the push notifications that say, hey, your order has been processed. It's been shipped. It's out for delivery. Congratulations, your order has arrived. And they know instantaneously, so they're happy and being updated in that process, they can go pick it up, and they leave far less risk for any porch pirate to come pick it up because they were notified the minute that it was delivered. So by encouraging your customers to download the Route app in your confirmation page and your confirmation email, you are offloading that responsibility of proactively communicating to them the information to an automated process and a delightful experience that, as we've seen from the numbers, customers love to use and they love to engage with. We have a case study that I'd be happy to share to anyone who asks with a women's activewear company called Sanita. And they reported that since using Route and encouraging their users to download the app, they've seen a 78% reduction in general support activity and have saved $33,000 a year in their support costs. So it's significant. Next slide. Our next suggestion is to automate resolution. And we've established that you can't control whether or not a package gets lost, damaged, or stolen. You do what you can. But what you absolutely can control is automating the resolution of those. So the second piece of Route is called Route Plus. This is an option that integrates with your e-commerce platform, whatever you're on, in your checkout process to give customers the option here at the bottom of the screenshot there to add Route Plus shipping protection to their order. So if it is lost, damaged, or stolen, all they got to do is tap their phone 3 or 4 times. They can do that either in the Route app if they've downloaded it, or just through the confirmation email that they receive when they check out, so that they can automatically request a replacement from Route. And when they're approved, and 95% of the time we approve these claims, Route will go in through the front end of your store and repurchase the exact same order, but with our credit card. So you're getting a second sale and the customer gets a resolution within 24 hours to have a new package sent out to them. It's an unmatched white glove experience for them that absolutely blows their minds and creates greater loyalty after they've been taken care of so quickly and so seamlessly. It requires minimal effort on their part, and it never ever comes across your team's desk to try to support, but you're given all the information in a dashboard that shows you when these claims are outstanding, when they've been honored, et cetera, so that you can keep in touch with the client if they do reach out to you and ask you any other questions. We also talked about your returns policy being a major cost center. Let's stay on that slide, Jordan. Not only do you need to make sure that your returns policy is easy to find, very simple for customers to use, but we're now beta testing the ability to initiate those returns within the Route app. So as a customer has tracked their order all the way to their door, they then have the tools to maybe not make a claim that there's a problem with it, but to, in a very normal way, to begin that process where they can get the shipping label, they can get all the information they need reported back to you, so you know to expect that coming back. But ultimately, this gives you a chance to boost revenue by allowing Route to repurchase those replacements from you, rather than just having to give them away. And as you can see, we've seen some pretty amazing impact with a brand called Ruli that we work with, who's seen a 96% reduction in the time they spend on claims and a 93% decrease in the amount of time it takes to get their customers taken care of. So if we look at this just in a linear model, the way it works is that you integrate Route in your checkout process just to give customers the option to add Route. This is totally free to merchants. We do not make our money from our partner merchants who add us in their checkout process. Customers just simply choose whether or not they want to add 98 cents or about 1% to their cart total to add Route protection. You can then encourage them to download the Route app so they can track their order all the way to their doorstep. If it's lost, damaged, or stolen, they can go through an automated process to get it replaced. And then in the end, they continue to stay in this app as they track their entire e-commerce shipping experience across all stores, so that they've got a running order history with you and with everybody else they've shopped with online. So it makes it easy for them to rediscover, reconnect, and repurchase products from you and be driven right back to your store. So those are our key recommendations. Is make it easier for them to track their packages, make it easy for them to replace them when something goes wrong, and be able to engage with them over time. Yeah, Jordan, you can advance. We've worked with some amazing brands and continue to work with them. We're excited to be able to talk with you. As I said, we are totally free to merchants. That's not a promo just for people on this presentation. Our model really is just giving customers the opportunity to add that additional peace of mind and protection to their order. But we do have a promo for anyone who attended the call today. On the next slide, you can see here, if you'll go to route.com/coalition, we do have a $100 gift card incentive for any merchants that will try this out. If you have any questions, my email is real easy. Just reach out to adam@route.com, and I know Jordan's going to circulate the recording and the deck of this call today. So you shouldn't have to screenshot that or try to scribble it down, but we'd love to connect with any of you and talk about how we can save some costs on the back end.
Awesome. And since we are short on time, I'll go ahead and wrap. I didn't see any new questions come in. We'll handle the couple that were in earlier in the call. We'll get those addressed via email. I will be following up today with an email with a link to where you can rewatch the webinar or share the webinar. We'll also include a couple of promotional offers from Route or from BigCommerce for those of you who are interested in following up there. And then Coalition is offering both free audits and free consultation on any of the points that we touched on. So if you'd like to speak with me about the training side, the documentation side of things, or you'd like to have one of our pay-per-click experts dive into how you're structured in your pay-per-click campaigns, we're certainly willing to do that for you free of charge. And we will make that information very actionable, so you aren't sort of looking at a sales presentation. It really is about how can we improve your pay-per-click campaign, and perhaps resourcing you with information to do that on your own. So I really do appreciate everyone's time today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share and stop the recording. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Adam. Really appreciate you guys contributing here, and look forward to continue to work with you all. And some point in the near future, we'll be out there with well-sanitized hands, giving each other high fives, hugs, fist bumps, or whatever else is deemed socially appropriate. So I look forward to that opportunity.
Thanks, everyone.